Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be here with my beautiful friend and brother, Waangenga Blanco. Waangenga, it's such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you. Thank you for the honor to be here to speak with you and your wonderful audience. Yes.
It is our honor to have you here, my honor to have you here. And I want to tell everyone a little bit about you. Waangenga Blanco is a proud Indigenous Australian man who descends from the Pajinkawik in Cape York, Northern Australia, and the Meriam, the furthest eastern island in the Torres Strait. He is an award-winning, globally touring performing artist specializing in contemporary dance, choreography, and acting. He's a brilliant facilitator of embodied practices and movement practices for people of all ages, and I'm thrilled to have you here. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Simon.
Waangenga, is it possible we begin with just maybe you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the field of embodied practices, presumably beginning first with your own performance and touring around the world with Bangarra, and also then how you came on to now facilitate teaching people of all levels.
Of course. Of course. So being a man of the land of Indigenous heritage to Australia, my ancestors have always embodied nature, embodied the kangaroo when we're hunting, or whenever we're out hunting, or the emu, whatever it is that we're hunting, we embody that creature. And so we go into this process of empathy for the creature. You want to feel the way it moves. You want to feel the way it breathes. You want to feel the way it feels, touches the earth. And in that deep love and respect of that creature, you become that creature. So it doesn't see you any different from one of its own kin. And so for me, traditional dance, when I was doing my traditional dances and we were mimicking the kangaroo, and we had to drop our shoulders down or shake in a way or move our feet in a way that mimicked them. It was about, that was my first experience really entering or allowing the spirit of that creature to enter my body. And so from there, I joined a dance company, Bangarra, which is a company in Australia which is all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander First Nations of Australian people. And we fused contemporary dance with traditional dance. And through these dances, again, we would be performing, but we'd be mimicking nature. But not only would we be mimicking nature, we'd be awakening in ourselves the nature that is already in us, that animal is already in us. We're made of the same fibers. We're made of the same materials, from the cosmos. And so we were just transforming and turning this magic into our body. And that was my first experience of embodiment. And then it wasn't until I really, I was 14 years with the dance company. And when I left the company, my body was tired. My spirit was exhausted. And I'd been constantly touring for 9 months of the year for 14 years, and I just became really burnt out. And so I really wanted to go back and start teaching what I knew to my community here in Byron Bay and to my people. And the more I was teaching, I realized I wasn't teaching stuff that I was really true to me. And I had to really strip back what the essence was of dance, the medicine of dance, the healing of dance, the connection that dance brings. And so I did some trauma-informed training with a beautiful lady called Maylai Swan. And through that, I began to understand my own trauma, the trauma of my family, of my father, the intergenerational trauma. And I knew that I had this tool, my body, to heal this. And so I began to really strip back, like I said, what was the medicine in the movement? Where was the healing in it? Where was I gonna find connection? And where was I gonna step away from the performative quality of dance? Because dance had just become about performing for audiences, and it wasn't. And in that, I was getting out of my body. I was big, and so I was like, I need to get back in my body. And so I started just playing with small things. I'd just be sitting in nature, observing waves and the quality of the waves, and then to acknowledge the water quality in me. And I would allow my body just to mirror the crashing of the waves. Or I'd watch a tree and I'd just observe the gentle dance of the tree, understanding how deep those roots of the tree would go into the earth. And so I would just really just drink in the spirit of nature and reflect it in my body as deeply and honestly and authentically as I could. And that really was happening with conversations with nature, my relationship with nature, how I related to it, how my right relationship with country. Because when I observed that tree and I saw the waves, coming from the great mother of ocean, I felt that I remembered that tree and that ocean is my family. That spirit of country is my family. The hills outside my house and the river systems are all my family. They're all characters in my life, and we provide for each other, and we share this earth together. But ultimately, it holds me and it holds us. And so that was the true beginning of my healing journey, and what I could share that healing with others was quite profound when my teaching completely shifted away from me stepping at the front of a class or a group of people to us starting to create circle, working in circle, working as an equality together in this circle. And I guess when I first begun and I started teaching, I wasn't talking so much. I spend most of the hour and a half that I teach with an eyes closed state, and people would sort of I would just let the energy move through me, the energy in motion, the emotion, and I would be that tree, and my feet would sink deep into the earth, feel it feeding from the heart of the mother. And that's where it sort of began. There wasn't much conversation. And then as I grew confident in what was happening and an awareness of what was happening in my body, I began to share that. And I would just always say each time before I start teaching, I'd ask country to speak through me, use me, my body as a conduit to move through me. And just one of you is going to step aside right now, and allow the spirit to work through me. And as the classes have developed, there's this beautiful balance of the stark, serious, and beauty of nature, but there's this silliness that is in there as well. And I've allowed a bit of Waangenga's ego to trickle in there too, just to add some playfulness. And ultimately, what I really wanted to share with what I do is the joy of movement, the love of this vessel, and my appreciation as a visitor in this vessel. Yeah. But it was all about really, for me, it was about getting out of my head and getting into my heart and feeling my body as country, as landscape. And each day I make this prayer to my body, to myself, to walk this country, to see each of its valleys and its rivers, to understand the molten lava that runs through my veins and beats from my heart. And I feel like once I was clued in on this, I had to share it. I had to share it. This is not my knowledge. It's just my truth, and it's been shared with me through country, through spirit.
Wow. Waangenga, that's just so beautiful. You speak with a poetry that resonates, a truth that is the blending between your connection between your body, the earth, and your spirit in the most beautiful way. When I first met you, for people to know this, I had the privilege of being a teacher of very simple practices, not practices, even principles of how the body works. When you were in the Bangarra dance company, I was invited to come and teach as a physiotherapist, yoga teacher. And, I was so humbled because there I was teaching about the body to people who are so profoundly more understanding about the body and more physically capable than I ever was. So it was always my honor to be there, but I was stunned at your physical abilities. And for anyone who's watching this, check out Bangarra, go look it up on YouTube, see the brilliant performances. Even just to watch you at the beginning of this talk, when you just said, move your shoulders, I go, I can't even move my shoulders and neck like that. It's just so free, so it's magical. But what I really was impressed by was, as you said, performance is one thing, but your own personal practice is different to a performance. And, I've done some performance and I performed some yoga movements and stuff like this. But when you're performing, it's very difficult, very different to doing it for yourself. And this is what I really felt not so long ago. It was about 2 or 3 months ago, when both of us had this wonderful privilege of facilitating part of a course for normal, regular people who live in offices and jobs and a normal modern life, which is a basically dysfunctional, unnatural life. And you led everyone through this most beautiful practice, which was embodying the principles you just said then. And it was such a pleasure to be in it. You led us through very simple, accessible, but so effective movements that you led us through visually, which was great to have that visual look of something you can follow. But also you spoke with this poetic connection about you, your connection to yourself and your connection to land and country. I'd love to maybe just go through on a physical and an energetic and a mental or emotional social level. Can you give us some of the principles, for example, that you do with your body? What are some simple physical tools that people can maybe address, which would get them away from that normal state back into the natural state that I think you're so connected with?
What I really am excited by is the light and the shade, the contraction and the expansion, and the excitement and the de-excitement, and what really anchors me and what we all connect with, what we all drink every day is breath. Where the gift and the stream of this breath, the breath that our ancestors, we still have the same air on this planet that all our ancestors have breathed. In fact, we breathe in the cells of them. And so I have never actually done breath work, but I work my breath through my dance. And I know that I've always, through my own experiences of panic attacks and anxiety, I learned that I had to send my breath deep back into the navel, deep into I call it my pot belly fire, which lays in my belly. And inside my belly lies these coals. And each time I breathe deep into the navel, the connection to my mother, I see the embers glow with this deep, rich, orange, red glow. And that's where I begin my day, just sending that breath deep into my belly. And from there, this beautiful still space, that's where all creativity in life is birthed from. And as a dancer, you can get quite excitable and moving around and hyped in your breath, and you can get really caught up in your chest. And I seem to have, I seem to have adapted and learned over the years to just to send it deep into my body. And the principles of what I try to do is really getting out of here. As soon as I breathe into my chest, my thinking all comes up in here. And so it's really all about coming back to feeling my pulse, my heart, deep breath in my belly, feeling into my toes, and knowing that my toes, having the joy of feeling and receiving messages and information from the earth. I have the pleasure of living here in the Northern Rivers where I don't have to wear shoes often. My children refuse to wear shoes because we call shoes the foot coffin. Yeah, and we try to get our foot coffins off, you know. But, you know, it is a privilege to not have to wear shoes. But I was with Wim Hof about 2 months ago, and we were in Sydney and we we're walking around, and he refused to wear shoes in the city as well. He was, a man of the land. And so I'm trying to be a bit brave, but also as a dancer, I have to look after my feet. So when I do wear shoes, I choose to wear like cork under my feet with like the Birkenstocks or something like that.
I love that you talked about the breath as being this important connection, because many people, when you hear about breathing, what they do, if you say to someone, a normal person, take a deep breath in, first of all, they go straight to the chest. They make a loud breath into the chest. And what you said was that brings you more into your head. And let's face it, most of us are disconnected with our body and stuck in our heads. That's the normal person. And what we need to do is get back into our body. So as you said, a deep breath really is right down deep inside your body. And one of the things that really impresses me when I see you move is that I can't hear your breath. I don't see your breath. It's an invisible, inaudible breath, the same as you do in your deepest, most sleep. You're doing that while you move. And often people think, oh, I am running, I am exercising, I should breathe more. But logically, a fit person runs fast, hardly breathes at all. And so that's the essence of meditative breath. And meditation really for me is that often you hear people say meditation is when subject and object become as one. You become engrossed in your activity in the present moment. But you do that in a way which is the most physiologically natural way, because your thinking brain in your head connects with your gut brain. And the gut brain, of course, technically it's the enteric nervous system, but it's this large network of nerves around your lower abdomen in your pot belly, which I love what you call it. And I always talk about my baby belly or my Buddha belly and say Buddha wasn't fat, he was just relaxed. And that's about how we should be. So I really like that you have this connection between thinking brain and action brain or second brain or gut brain, you know. That really, I think, helps embody the practice. And what I'd like to know a little bit more about is energetically, how do you manage your energy in the day, and how do you guide people energetically in the practice? I like the idea of contract and expand, because that also will pump blood through the body. And when you guided us, you had us doing really simple movements that made everyone very warm, very quickly, without making our heart race. To me, that's the pinnacle of health. If you can get super blood flow, so you really feel warm fast, but the heart hardly beats at all. Most people think that got to do cardio, got to get a heart rate up. But someone whose heart beats fast when you're doing not much is basically unfit. So maybe a little something about that.
Yeah, the simplicity of what I try to, it's not what I try to do. I really try and strip it back to make what I do accessible. You know, so often I've heard as a dancer that people say, oh, I love to dance, but I'm no good at it. And I'm just like, oh, I'm so sorry that you believe that, and that someone has told you that, and that you've been conditioned to believe that you're not a good dancer, because we all learned to dance before we learned to walk. We're all sitting inside our mother's womb, just hearing the gentle beating of our heart. You know, there's a dance that happens inside the embryonic womb, you know. And so, and when we come out and when our legs aren't quite ready to stand yet, but we hear music or rhythm, we just have this gentle dance that happens in our body. And so what I do with what I'm trying to share is just the simplest movement, you know, whether it's just a drawing up of the shoulders and dropping. It's just, I want people to adapt and see how that feels on their body. I don't want them to be frightened of movement. I don't want them to be afraid of this tool. I want them to know it's their tool. And upon watching a dancer, they can be really intimidated. And and I've seen this over the years by going into spaces and presenting a count of 8 movements, and people just going, oh no, what is that? Where do I begin with that? You know, We begin with the breath. We begin with knowing where our feet are. We begin in our true nature of knowing what we are and what we're reflecting around us. And yeah, so I feel that the simplest movement can just be expanded simply by our awareness of it, even if it's like the shaking of the shoulders, how I was doing that before, and just letting that move. And then where's it coming from? Is it coming from that still center where all creation is birthed in my belly, where I'm anchoring my breath, you know? And yeah, I feel that, yeah, the simpler it is, the more accessible it is for others. And everything I do is simply an invitation. People can take it or leave it. I don't really particularly like being told what to do, but I love being invited. I love when people say, hey, you're most welcome to, if you wish, to just move your finger like the water, making your finger just, I do a lot of a lot of visualization. I love the imagination, you know, as we all do. It's just this wonderful gift we all have. And just to imagine our fingers twirling in water, imagining that quality and really believing in the magic of that imagination, and then allowing that to move through your body. You know, when you walk and you see space and you're looking through country and not glazing your eyes through the space, but seeing the space in between, acknowledging the space in between, you know. And that's what I feel. The more awareness I have in my body, the more connection I have, the more I feel a part of everything, the more connected I feel. And, you know, and connection for me and for most all humans is it's everything. It's integral to everything. Yeah. And it's not only just being connected to the outer landscape, but the landscape within, you know, the inner landscape, where it all begins.
That's so beautiful. Like I've traveled a lot in India, and in the Indian cultural heritage, they talk about the rivers inside the body, which is where the energy flows. And you alluded to the same sort of thing from your understanding with traditional connections to the land, that your inner body is part of the landscape, that we're connected to the land, that we're connected within our body, and that real sense of freedom mentally comes when you have freedom in your body and you let the energy move through your body freely. And you use that wonderful term, which I've heard before. Many people might have not heard, though, this energy in motion, emotion, which of course is this emotional word. So I would love you to talk a little bit, if possible, about how your emotional body works when you practice and how you share that with other people. You mentioned visualization. So anything you could share about that, perhaps?
Yes, Simon. Yeah, energy in motion, emotion. It's we're a conduit, right? We are ultimately this connection from great sky to Mother Earth. And I see us almost as this gentle plume of smoke. When we light fire, and our culture, it is to draw our connection to the sky and to the earth. And the body I see as this meeting point of that. And through us moves this energy. And we've got to keep it moving, though. We've got to keep this energy in motion. We've got to let the emotion flow through us. Yeah, otherwise it's going to get stuck, and it's going to cause sickness and disease and a really unhealthy mind. And so I'm a very emotional man and a human being, and I'm dancing with the masculine and the feminine in me all the time. And it is my prayer every day to move this energy. It's my responsibility to move this energy. And it's my joy and my honor to hold a space and be in a space to lead that in other people and to create a safe space for that to happen. You know, people, it's about coming, we're walking each other home. We're bringing each other home to the heart, to our bodies. That's why so many people are are strangers in their own body, just simply just visiting, and most of the time they're not even in this body, but they're just dancing up here. And so energy in motion is, it's my responsibility to move it, and it's my, like I said, my quite joy to share that with others. And as I was saying, this body carries the whole of the universe and everything and beyond. Bayami, Great Spirit in it. And we can shift worlds within ourselves. When we shift these worlds within ourselves, we can shift the whole universe and all those, and move those around us. Movement and action. Yes.
That is so beautiful. What really got me just then was that your wisdom, which I believe is in your intuitive wisdom, but I think it also must relate to your cultural heritage as well, is the same understanding that I learned from my Indian yoga teachers, but also when you mentioned about your understanding that your body is like this marriage between heaven and earth, and it's like a conduit as well. This is something, there's actually a Chinese expression that goes exactly like this, and the Chinese traditional wisdom says exactly the same. So, here's me. I've done 3 degrees in modern medical science and human biology, and the more I study, the more I recognize that basically science has a little bit lost it. And we've gone so far away from real nature. Science has become so reductionist, so disconnected. And really, it's based on a bunch of assumptions, which are really the wrong assumptions, like survival of the fittest. If you're good, you're going to go to heaven. If you're bad, you're going to go to hell. No pain, no gain. All these things that are really disconnecting us from each other and disconnecting us from nature, and making us get lost away from our feeling body and stuck in our thinking head. I really love that you've said everything you've said. Can you have maybe a little bit, tell us how your traditional wisdom, is there anything consciously from your traditional wisdom that you could share with us? Because, I'm hearing you as an individual, like if I meet you on the street, I go, this is an intuitive, amazing man who's got really good understanding of yourself and your connection with body and self. But then when I went to your class, and obviously from seeing you in Bangarra, there is an Indigenous wisdom as well, which you perhaps got from connection with family and relatives. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about how the traditional approach to life has affected the way you approach your body, and how you share that in your practices, perhaps with your students?
First of all, like things like you said, like no pain, no gain, is all sounds like a real capitalist mindset. It's to keep us like boom, 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 going, going, going. And something I believed in also. It's still romanticized in the arts, in dance, that you have to be the struggling, pained artist. And the thing with our culture is, and most Indigenous cultures, is that we have a relationship with country. We have a season of relationship with country. We're not about taking. We're about this. It's reciprocal. We receive from the mother. We don't take from the mother, but we receive and we give back. And I think where I've come to, like the company that I was with, Bangarra, it was an all Indigenous company, but it doesn't mean that everybody, just because they're Indigenous, were connected. A lot were brought up in urban lifestyles and disconnected from their culture. And I had the intuitive awareness to just scratch a little deeper beneath the surface, and to really through my own trauma, like I said, I was able to find the true cause of the pain and try and find the remedy for that. And it was about being in the right relation with country. It's about understanding that we are nature, and that has changed everything for me. And I've always been aware of it. I was very fortunate to grow up in a very beautiful place in far northern Queensland, by the coast, on the water. My father, he fished every day for us. And my father is where I get my Indigenous heritage from. And my mum was grateful, but she also didn't quite see the value of his cultural practice. She didn't see it as cultural practice. She wanted him to get a 9-to-5 job. She wanted him to provide in a different way for the family. Dad would bring in money, but it wasn't always the most legal ways, and he was selling fish to friends, but he was still practicing and giving back to the land. He wasn't always fishing in the same place. There was a season to fish in a certain area. There's a season to fish by the mangroves. There's a season to fish by the river. There's a season to go out to the reef. And so I was, fortunate enough to pay witness to this. And I don't personally hunt myself. I gather with my son and my daughter. We go and we collect berries and fruits which are in season. But my son is very keen to go fishing and get a line in the water. But I want, more than anything, I want him to first put his head under the water. And if he's going to catch something, he'll be with a spear. Yeah, and I want him to see that fish. I want him to build a relationship with these animals, with his family, because the ocean is our mother, and everything within the ocean is the children of the mother. And so before he makes his first kill, I want him to love and appreciate, to move and embody these creatures. And so, like you're saying, there's no pain, no gain mindset. I think it's all really driven by us just taking from mother and thinking there's such abundance that we can just continue to take without any thought of sustainability or generations to come, because I'm always thinking 7 generations ahead. What am I going to leave for them?
Wow, that's so beautiful. You've talked about freedom inside your body, but freedom inside your mind is directly related to freedom inside your body. And I think many of us in the modern world are basically trapped. We're slaves in a slave system where you're allowed to go away for 12 hours before you come back to the jail of your job. And we're constantly being imprisoned physically, physiologically, and mentally, physically in our bodies, stuck in chairs all day, physiologically with the idea that we have to hold our tummy in tight, pull the shoulders back and down just to look good and open the chest, all this nonsense work with physiologically. And then mentally also in the prison of no pain, no gain. We're really, and this idea of survival of the fittest. I was a molecular biologist. I used to study genetic engineering and stuff like this in the 1980s. And, I studied gene cloning. But the idea of evolution theory, the way most people put it into everyday life, that it is survival of the fittest, just seemed just not tangible. It wasn't real. I look outside, like you look outside, and what you see is symbiosis. Nature works by cooperation, by sharing good energy and loving information amongst itself. The funguses grow between the trees, connect the animals, everything's connected. And this is what is so obvious in what you're saying and what you're doing and how you're teaching. And I think this is the key that you've found in yourself to actually relieve yourself of the trauma. You've had trauma in your life. Many people have had trauma in their life. And I think that this is part of what you've done to get rid of it. Can you talk a little bit about how people can get rid of trauma in their lives, a little bit with that respect?
First steps for me was to alleviate my nervous system of stress. And that began with meditation. Whatever form of meditation works for you. They say that there's over 50,000 forms of meditation. The one that works, he spoke to me, was the one with the least effort, the most effortless technique was the Vedic meditation, which was brought to the West by Maharishi. And it began with the awareness and offloading my nervous system to not be living in this flight or fried or freeze life anymore. And to becoming aware of, well, having been in a state to have a calm, to be aware of what was happening, I had to, like I said, I had to go back to observing nature and observing the simplicity of nature, the needs of nature, and stepping away from my wants and my desires, and truly understanding what was needed. And what I needed to become aware of was what I was feeling, where those feelings were getting held in my body. I seemed to really catch it in my shoulders. And I always catch myself rubbing my shoulders. Why am I so stuck in my shoulders? I don't know which way I'm meant to look. I don't know where my focus is meant to be. It's getting caught up in here. And so I just started simple things like just tapping on where I felt. Imagine yourself as a house, and I wanted to walk into each of these rooms in my house, and I wanted to open the doors. I wanted to open the windows and open the blinds and let the breeze come in and the sunshine. And I wanted to declutter any stagnant air in that space. And I was just simply breathing deep into my belly and finding where I was catching tension. And I found that if I just brought my attention to these spaces, I would just do simple things to relieve these spaces of energy by shaking or tapping or massaging and swiping. And I found that as I relieved the stress in my neck, I realized that my father has the same tension that he has built up in his shoulders. He's got these great traps. And the more I began the work on healing and deeper understanding the metaphysical symptoms behind this, the more relaxed my father's shoulders became. And so the healing that I was doing in my body was bringing healing to my father and to his body. And I realized that it wasn't just my tension, but it was the tension of his father and his father before him. And I was just simply becoming aware that I had the resources, the awareness, the know-how to heal the line back to my father and back to his father. So, the trauma that I feel I was having was a trauma that a lot of people live with, and we're all related to. I was living in a city. I was becoming numb and beginning to shut myself off to connection around others. I was starting to wear headphones just to walk through the city, to disconnect, to get into my zone, because I didn't want to be connected to the zones around me. And so, I think, like I said, the awareness came from meditation. And through the meditation came that awareness and the habits and the tensions that were built up my body. And I was like, and I asked my body, I speak to my body and I say, is this mine? Is this mine to hold? Do I really need this? Or is this just being handed on for me to resolve? And quite often when I step into the fire and I'm shedding layers, I'm healing my family's trauma as well. I'm clearing things that are built in their body. And whenever I go home, I still check in on my father's shoulders. I rub his shoulders up here, and I feel mine, and I feel my father's shoulders, and I can feel that we're at the same sort of tension. And the more I release, the more he releases. And I've had conversations about this, and it's not something my father would commonly speak about. He was, but yeah, he acknowledges it, and he recognized, an ease within him with the work that I've done. Yeah, and that was also with substance abuse. I began, with the line of work that I do, drinking and Substance abuse can be glorified, romanticized, and widely accepted. And so I decided 5 years ago, before my son was born, that that alcohol wasn't a service to me. It wasn't a part of my culture, and it's something that had been colonized in my culture and into my body. And so I stopped drinking because I wanted to cut that cycle. I didn't want to pass that on to my son. And as I did that, it brought an awareness to my father about his drinking and his habits. And through that awareness and through my healing and the recognition of that, my father began to drink less. I'm not saying this is a proven fact for all, but it's just an awareness and something that I observed happening, a healing happening within my father as well. Yeah.
Monica, that's so beautiful. I mean, really what you're talking about is meditation as a principle. You mentioned the Vedic meditation, but what I see in everything about you from when I met you is you are in a constant state of meditation, especially when you take the time to embody yourself. Because for me, meditation is 5 things. It's got to be sustainable, like you mentioned. It's got to be engaging, so you feel connected in the present moment with the activity you're doing. It must feel effortless. It must feel calming. But at the same time, it must feel invigorating. You must feel the energy move through you. So, whether you call it Vedic meditation or your natural meditation, you are meditation in motion, and what you're teaching is meditation in motion. I think this is so beautiful. It's been wonderful seeing the similarities, the parallels between what you're saying, what you intuit, what your cultural heritage tells you, and what I see in the teachings from India, China, Japan, and all the other traditional cultures around the world, which are so natural and so far away. We've come in the modern world so far away, like you mentioned, walking through the city with what is natural and what means connected. The idea that you can connect within yourself to change others is revolutionary. I think we feel it, basically people don't listen to you. They actually see how you are and resonate with it. If you're angry, people around you get angry. If you're loving, people around you become loving. And you've gone even further by looking at your own shoulders and healing your father's, changing your own, substance abuse. Like everyone has substance abuse. People talk about don't do drugs, but actually the worst drugs often are food. People take take food like drugs. That is the worst, So, but you've actually addressed all that, and you've seen change in your family, the people around you. We feel change coming to your class, and people walk away from a session with you feeling revolutionary different. Could we maybe finish today's session, because I'm aware you've got to go to a next meeting? Maybe you could share an embodied practice with myself, the listeners, and maybe either sitting in a chair or standing up in front of the computer. Would you like to share something with us like that?
My pleasure and my honor, Simon. Thank you for asking. Yeah. Well, this was shared with me, and it's I've seen other people doing this also, but I like to ignite these 3 fires in me. And it was brought to my attention that when we're in our mother's belly, when we're deep in the womb and we're growing and the heart is growing, from the heart grows our arms and our hands and our fingers. And so ultimately, our hands and our arms are an extension of our heart. And that excited me because I realized that when I was doing this, I was closing my heart. When I was doing this, I was opening my heart. And just by simply placing my hands on my lap right now, I've got my palms sat on my knees. I feel relatively open. But if I just simply flip my hands and raise them so they're just the back of the hands sitting on my knees, I can feel an open through my chest and my heart. I feel vulnerable. I feel open. I feel connected. And so a beautiful thing I love to do at the beginning of my class is to bring my hands together. And you can do this sitting, or you can do it standing with your feet just underneath your hips or 1 foot wider than your hips, and my knees slightly bent if you wish. And then I like to just gently ignite the fire in my palms, fingers facing forward. And then I begin to gather these little bits of dust. I call them the cat hair, which start together. And I want to rinse the cat hair. And I want to warm my heart. Yeah. And I want the skin to gently always melt. And then I'm going to bring the attention towards the heels of my hand. And through this, my body is loose and the muscles are falling off the bones. Yeah. And you're bringing this gentle warmth to the body. And then I'm going to place the heels of my hands to my eye sockets. And I'm going to drop my chin towards my chest. And I'm going to allow my head, the heaviest part of my body, to fall into the heels of my hands. And then I'm going to allow that delicious heat that is gathered in the heart of my hands to melt my eyes. And the heat is going to move deep into the back of my skull, warming my brain. I'm going to allow the breath to just effortlessly smooth through my body, deep into the pit of my pot belly fire, into my Buddha belly. And I'm going to see those embers glow orange and red. And in the darkness, I will bring my focus into the darkness, and I will see this darkness for what it truly is. I will see speckles of light. And I begin to notice that it's my understanding that blackness or darkness is actually all the colors of the rainbow combined. I see it when my children are mixing the Play-Doh. I become frustrated when they mix all the colors and then it becomes a dark, black, brown. But what we fall in and descend into here is the black rainbow, this infinite color. And instantly, this begins to release any fatigue from my eyes or any anxiety. And then I will slowly bring my little fingertips to meet. And then that'll be followed by my ring fingertips. My middle fingers meet at the pad of the fingertips, followed by the index. And then the thumbs, they gently slide across the eyes. Now I'll keep my eyes closed, or if it's not safe for you to be there like that, we can just come to a soft focus. And my hands finish in a prayer between my brows. I feel the lightness and the brightness through my eyelids. And then with my eyes closed or with a soft focus, I bring my hands back down towards prayer, fingers facing forward. And then I'm going to reignite that fire. We're coming to the second fire. And again, it may take a little longer this time because you may have gathered some sweat in your brow and your eyes. And then from here, we're going to place our hot hands just below the collarbones. And with an exhalation, I'm just going to lean my heart into my hands as I literally hold my heart with my hands. And I press my palms into my skin, into my flesh, so I can leave like an imprint. So I'm not being shy with the touch. And I just check in with my heartbeat. I check in with the volcano, just pulsating beautiful molten lava through the rivers of my veins. I check in with my humanity. I understand that as I hold my heart, I hold all the hearts. Sometimes I might give a little hum just to feel the resonance in that space. And the breath is really not getting caught in here. It's just moving still deep into the pot belly of my fire. And then when you're ready, I gently bring my palms back to meet into prayer, fingers facing forward. And then we're going to ignite the last fire together. And already gathering a bit of heat under the arms. Just from the simple motion. And I'm really excited about clearing any of the dead skin off my hands. And then I clasp my fingers at the peak of the heat, and I really like to reveal my belly and get my palms clasped over the navel, the connection to the mother. And I allow the breath to fill my abdomen. And I feel the skin stretching from my belly towards my palms. And I relish in the safety, the softness, and the familiarity of my own touch. I hold my deliciously swollen belly as it just draws in nourishing, refreshing, replenishing breath. What a gift. Oh, I even might give my belly a little rub, but I let the fingers just gently press into my belly. Oh. And when you're ready, you just let my hands fall back open, facing forward. And this, sorry, hello. Coming back. This may take 5 minutes, can take 15 minutes, however long you need it to take. Just do these 3 5s, the eyes, through to the heart, through to the belly. Very simple, deeply effective, and some days I had absolute resistance to that. Some days I'm like, oh, do I really want to check in on what's going on in my heart? And I may be there for 15 minutes, and the energy will begin to take motion, and that's what's really important. Yeah, because my brain so often will just try to intervene and jump into a low vibration. That's why I had this daily prayer, this practice. Yeah, thank you for allowing me to share this with you, Simon, and for your audience.
I want to say thank you on behalf of everyone, because many people are so frightened to do anything with their body. It's like many people go, no, I don't exercise, but actually I'm a physiotherapist. One of the few things that I really resonate with physiotherapy is we say exercise is optional, movement is essential, but part of that movement is connection with touch. Touch is so beautiful. The best way to connect with your body is touch it. Sometimes it's hard for the neurons to actually get from the head to the toes, but if you grab your toes, touch them, grab your tummy, grab your chest, grab your face, it feels beautiful. Everyone likes being touched by other people. Touching yourself is so simple and such a simple way of connecting. That was so beautiful. Thank you so much. I feel better already. I only had a couple of hours sleep, but you've made me feel like I've had a full night's sleep.
And remembering that these hands, I never feel that my ancestors are further than the print and the indentation of my hands, And I'd be careful to say this because I don't know your relationship with everybody's relationship with their mother or their father or their grandparents, but I do truly believe that we're always held by our ancestors, by our old people. They simply are all here ingrained in the markings on our hands. So yeah, it's to be touched. It's not me touching. It's everybody's touching me.
It's funny because, yeah, you're right. Some people haven't got a clear relationship with their parents, but everyone knows they came from a mother and they were inside that mother, and that mother knows that you grew inside her. And actually the egg that made us was inside our grandmothers, so we know logically there's a connection with our ancestry and our family. So to actually, even though some people might have a dysfunctional relationship with family, we know it's there. So to connect with it the way you said was beautiful. My dear brother, I know I've got to let you go now. You've got to supposedly be in another meeting in about 50 seconds. So is there a way people can connect with you? Can you let us know maybe about somehow how people can resonate with your teachings or your work, a website, Instagram page, anything? that people could share with you from?
Get a hold of me or to find me, it would be simply email me. I would suggest, by my name, waangenga@gmail.com. Yeah, I'm not huge on the social media platforms, and I spend as little time as I can in front of a screen. In fact, this isn't even my laptop. This is my it's my wife's laptop. 30, I'm almost 40 and I have never owned a laptop. And I just recently got a smartphone maybe 5 years ago. So contact me by email if you wish to ask me any questions or to find out what I'm doing. But I'm busy being a performing artist, but I also do hold a monthly outdoor experience with the community here in the Northern Rivers and Byron Bay.
Waangenga, thank you so much. People can find you on Instagram as well, which is a place that I think people can see some of your work, and that's fantastic. And maybe we can put that in your bio as well, so people can see that. I love what you share there. I love what you shared with us today. I can't thank you enough for coming on and talking to us. And really, what you shared was beautiful. On behalf of everyone, on behalf of myself, thank you so much. I'll let you go back to your next appointment. And love you heaps, and see you soon, I hope. I'm going to come to one of your embodied classes if I can again soon.
See you, my brother.